tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Buddhang dhammang sanghang namasami. Good evening and blessings to you all. This weekend, Melbourne has gone back into lockdown, as many of you know. It's also Chinese New Year. Tomorrow is Valentine's Day. So tonight, as we come to meditate together, chant, listen to Dhamma and meditate, it's a good opportunity to pause and just take in the moment. When you hear the news of a snap lockdown, gave very little warning. How does that affect you? If you're a monk meditating in the forest, it might not affect you much at all. You might not even realize there's a lockdown. But many of you, no doubt, have been affected. Suddenly you have to cancel plans, activities, change schedules to do with work, school, social events. Maybe encountered various kinds of inconvenience, and so on. So how does it affect you, that news? May well bring up some frustration, disappointment, maybe some aversion, blaming somebody, somewhere for this. Or are you able to take it in your stride? Especially for everyone in Melbourne, we've been through a couple of lockdowns before, so it's nothing new. Maybe you can build on your experience of your past lockdown and say, oh, this is something I can adapt to, I can cope with. Maybe some people are even happy, more free time to meditate, chant, listen to the Dhamma, stay quietly at home. But take that opportunity just to pause and think how a lockdown affects you and how you feel about it. You get to know yourself at this time. What's coming up in your mind, good or bad. And this is what we're doing, say, when we come to meditate. Even though we have a meditation technique, we have the practice of mindfulness of breathing, or the 4 foundations of mindfulness, body, feeling, mind objects, for example. Those are the techniques. But as you begin practicing meditation, what is coming up in your mind? That will be different for each person. How you feel physically, how you feel mentally, what's going on in your life, what's happened today, for example. This will all be coming up as you start practicing meditation and turning your attention inwards. And it's not always easy to do that. But because we have some faith and confidence in the Buddhist teachings, When you, say just now we chanted in praise of Buddha, Dhamma, Sangha, chanted a few reflections, you get strength from that. When you practice chanting, recollecting or remembering the Dhamma, brings up very wholesome qualities, so that when you come to look at your mind, you already have some strength and some goodness there to face whatever reactions, feelings you're experiencing at this time. So the important time is always right here, right now, the present moment. Because this is where we're making karma, and this is where we're practicing. You may have plans about what you want to do in the future, and lockdown certainly interrupts them. But even if there was no lockdown, you'd still have lots of plans and thoughts about the future, but that's not really the place of practice. You may be telling yourself, I'm going to do this and do that, and practice like this and practice like that, and attain this and gain that, and free my mind from all kinds of problems and suffering in the future. But that hasn't happened yet. Or you may be dwelling on the past, and that may come up. Regrets, missing the past, enjoying thoughts of the past, hating thoughts of the past. The important thing is what's coming up right now, and how are you meeting what is arising in your mind right now. And the Buddha encouraged us to be heedful and mindful, bring up mindfulness, clarity, alertness, as much as we can in our life, so that we can know ourselves and develop the path that will lead to our happiness, our benefit, and the happiness of others. You develop the path, magga, in the present moment, not at some distant point in the future. You may have developed it in the past, but that's over now. Where you're developing the path is right here, right now. So every moment of your life is important. Every moment is new. This is certainly a new experience. Now we're in lockdown. Yesterday we weren't, today we are. But in so many ways, every moment is new. What's happening physically in your body, what's coming up in your mind, what's happening in the world around you. Every moment is different, every moment is new. So that's where we need all our mindfulness and understanding and wisdom, and particularly to avoid setting in motion unskillful causes, unskillful karma that will come back on us. Today is Chinese New Year, and you've probably heard it's Year of the Ox. Year of the Ox or Year of the Cow. And I've been encouraging people to see the cow or the ox in terms of the virtues of that animal. It symbolizes steady, hard-working kind of temperament, gentle, loyal, patient with the conditions. The traditional ox is out there either pulling a cart in all weathers or ploughing a field. Symbolizes many useful, virtuous qualities. But also the ox was used in many teachings from the Buddha. And one of the famous ones, the first verse of the Dhammapada, the Buddha, out of compassion for people, people listening to him, or for later generations, he was reminding us that the unskillful karma that we make comes back on us, follows us around, just like the wheel of the ox cart always follows the ox. And the ox cart wheel is heavy. The feeling of karma, the unwholesome, negative karma that we make is heavy. When we think of the negative things we've thought, said or done, it brings a heaviness to the mind, regret. We feel uncomfortable. It's painful, mentally painful. And then we also have that concern of when's it going to give its result? When's it going to hit me, what I've done? All of this originates from the mind. So when you think of this teaching, it's an encouragement to be mindful, to be restrained, to be careful what kind of karma you make from moment to moment through your day. And then the opposite, the good karma we make also follows us around, but like a shadow. You don't feel your shadow, you don't even notice it. It's light, it's there, but it's just in the background. All the good karma we've made through body, speech, mind, it has a lightness to it. When we remember it, think of it, we feel happy. Can even feel what we call a wholesome pride in the good that is being done. But even more importantly is it's constantly bringing a lightness to our mind. It's a supportive factor for making more good karma, developing ourselves along this path in a good way. So every time you see a poster advertising Chinese New Year, think of that. The ox is reminding us about that ox cart wheel following us if we do make bad karma. It's giving us the strength and making it important not to make any more bad karma in our life. It means giving us, telling us, pointing to the importance of looking after our mind, because all karma originates in our mind. So when you hear the news about lockdown, does it immediately give rise to complaints? You're annoyed or disappointed with the sudden change in your program and your day, what's going on? Do you look for someone to blame, or get angry, or feel disappointed, and just get caught up into that way of thinking? Already that's a bit of an ox cart wheel following you along. It will give you the tendency, the habit to do it again next time. Maybe this time you complain for 1 minute, and then maybe next time 2 or 3 minutes. Karma is like that. It compounds and it becomes something that we reinforce, and it gives its effects, its results over and over again, and sometimes more and more strongly, more intensely. But if you bring up mindfulness, you can catch that habit, even though it's there in the mind, and you say, no, I'm not going to complain, I'm not going to fall into aversion or negativity based on the news of lockdown. I'll be patient. One who has a wholesome state of mind, they tend to be patient and resilient. They don't easily fall into aversion or negativity when they get bad news. They can accept it, and they think of it. They reflect on it. Can even develop wisdom and insight out of it. So you reflect on lockdown. They're calling it a circuit breaker lockdown. It's like a power cut, isn't it? So you can learn from that, like we learn here in the monastery often, because we're in the mountains and we get storms and other things happen, we get power cuts quite often. So you learn to adapt when there's a power cut. If there's no light, well, you turn a candle on. You light a candle, rather. You light a candle or turn a torch on. If there's no power, you lose heating, well, you can light a wood fire or put on more clothing. If you are using something that requires electricity, well, you get used to waiting or looking for some other way to do the job or do that activity without electricity. So you learn to adapt and be patient. You may actually grow stronger as a person because of power cuts or because of lockdown in the same way. Rather than letting lockdown defeat you and make you feel bored, restless, frustrated, even though those feelings may come up, and don't give in to them. See what you can do to overcome them, bring up the qualities that will help you to let go of them. And this is how the Buddha encouraged us to practice, is to develop ourselves, even with the challenges and the difficulties of life, is to use them as opportunities to learn. And through experience we become wiser, more calm, and develop more upekkha, more equanimity. This spiritual quality that's so elusive and so difficult to find or maintain. It means evenness of mind, balance in the face of both good and bad, pleasant and unpleasant experiences. So can you keep your equanimity in the face of lockdown? This is part of our practice. And what is the condition for equanimity to arise in the mind? Well, establishing mindfulness and then reflecting on the Dhamma. The combination of mindfulness and wisdom brings upekkha or equanimity to the mind, even if only for a moment. If one develops continuous, regular practice, one regularly practices mindfulness until it's more continuous, well, one can experience more continuous equanimity. That might be what we call samadhi, a state of calm, steadiness of mind. One of the ways they describe the state of samadhi is the mind is unwavering. It doesn't waver, it's steady, it's still. And to develop clear insight and wisdom, we need that unwavering state of mind so that we can see things clearly as they are. When the mind is still wavering, there's no equanimity or not much equanimity, no mindfulness, well then we get caught up in our experience. We react with emotions, desire and aversion, liking, disliking. And we label everything and we say, well, this is what I like. We attach. So we say it becomes dear to me. This is what I don't like. It's not dear to me. I don't want it, don't like it. And then we remember those labels, and so unwittingly, unconsciously, we start to create clinging and attachment in our mind. So it'll come up again, maybe stronger the next time round. So if you give in to your negativity with lockdown, each time there's a lockdown, it will tend to get worse, and just the news of lockdown will trigger that same emotional reaction just automatically. If you're not aware, not mindful, will just hear the word lockdown and straight away feel grumpy, feel unhappy. Which is a shame, because it doesn't have to be like that. The Buddha and our teachers have pointed out if we look after our minds more, practice mindfulness and develop a little more samadhi, then we can contemplate these experiences and we don't have to give in to the negative states of mind. There's a story, one time there was a monk who ordained in Thailand, and after the 3 months rains retreat, he was feeling really depressed. He'd spent his rains retreat practicing a lot of meditation with a lot of expectations. I want to attain nibana. That's how he started. He wanted to become fully enlightened, full of enthusiasm, effort, faith. But as the 3 months went on, he found he was still far from nibana. So he changed his goal. Well, I want to just at least attain samadhi for this retreat. Maybe I won't get enlightened, but I want samadhi. That became his goal every day. I need samadhi. I need to develop this equanimity, stillness of mind. But by the end of 3 months, he still hadn't attained it. So he was very disappointed with himself, started to look down on himself. Instead of seeing all the good he'd done, becoming a monk and practicing, and he had done many good things, all he could think about was losing or not attaining samadhi, not attaining nibbana, not getting what he aimed for. So he felt like a failure. So he went to his teacher and he said, "Lumpur, I'm a failure. I haven't attained nibbana, I haven't attained samadhi, I give up. I've got no merit." And we say, once somebody who's meeting with a lot of misfortune, bad luck, failure is someone with no merit. So he said, "I've got no merit and I'm going to quit. I'm going to stop meditating because I can't do it. I haven't achieved anything. I'm a failure." The response of his teacher was that Lumpur said, he just laughed. He said, "Oh, you've got no merit. I better call in the monks then. I'll call 4 monks in." And the young monk said, "Why?" He said, "Well, you've got no merit. We're going to have a funeral then." So in Thailand they have a phrase, "Mai mi bun," or "bun mot." You've lost your merit. Means you're going to die, or you have died. Somebody who's died, we say their merit has ended. They've lost their opportunity to do good in life because they've died. So when someone dies, you call the monks in to do chanting, funeral chanting. That's the standard thing. So Lumpur said, "Oh, I'm going to call the monks in, do the funeral chanting then." It shocked the monk. He said, "Why? I'm still alive." He said, "Well, you said you've got no merit, and you're going to quit." He said, "Well, I'm still alive, but I just can't meditate. I haven't learned anything." And then Lumpur went on to say, "Well, you're like the guy in the forest who goes in the forest looking for mushrooms," which is something everyone knows about in northeast Thailand. And mushrooms are a big part of the diet, and you can collect them in the forest. He said, "You're like the guy who goes into the forest. You just want the big mushroom." Because they do get these giant mushrooms. I've seen them before, like so big they'll fill a whole frying pan. When you find one, you're very happy, because it's like you can make a whole meal out of one mushroom. So he said, "You're like the guy looking for that mushroom. You're walking past lots of little mushrooms, ignoring them, forgetting them, because you're only seeking this one big mushroom. So you miss so many opportunities, and maybe you never find the big mushroom anyway, so you go home feeling a failure." Practice is not about necessarily attaining the samadhi or the nibbana or the special experience. Practice is about learning from your experience day by day, little by little. And there's plenty of things you can learn along the way. Which is why I said the important thing is come back to the present moment. Whatever you're doing, wherever you are, what's going on in your mind right now, in the present moment. What thoughts are coming up, good or bad? You don't have to judge them. It's more about how are you meeting your mental experience. What qualities are you bringing up to look after your mind right now? Mindfulness. And then wisdom, contemplating your experience. And then you've got a chance to collect a lot of little mushrooms as you go. And a lot of little mushrooms together can make one plateful, which becomes a meal. Even if you never find the big mushroom yet, those little ones are quite useful. Your life is full of opportunities to have moments of insight and understanding arise to free your mind from suffering. So take them rather than just feeling a failure. Like lockdown can feel like a failure. Nothing to do, nowhere to go, boring, frustrating. Or you can use it as a time to practice, study the Dhamma, practice the Dhamma. Do some more meditation, learn some chanting, listen to the Dhamma or read some Dhamma. If you've got more free time, then that's all opportunities to collect some mushrooms. Lockdown can become a mushroom collecting time, meaning collecting insights into the nature of your own mind, your own life. Learn from the experience. What can we learn from lockdown? Well, like everything else, it has a beginning, has an end. Lockdown is not a permanent state of affairs, it's a convention. The government says, oh, we need a lockdown just to stop the spread of coronavirus. So we have to accept that. And they give a start to it. Some lockdowns may be longer than others, but it will finish. So we know that much. Has a start, has an end. And it really is just a label, isn't it? How does lockdown affect you? Well, in some ways it affects you. You can't travel, you can't do certain activities that you were planning or would expect to do. But many other things you can still do just the same. Lockdown doesn't mean to say you can't eat food. Or you could ask, how does lockdown affect my breath? Did you even know you were breathing? How often do we actually notice our breath in the course of a day? Lockdown doesn't affect the breath in and the breath out. Like, is your breathing in lockdown different from your breathing out of lockdown? Yesterday when you were out of lockdown, how was your breath? It's probably quite natural, going in, going out, rising and falling. Today you're in lockdown, has it affected your breath? I don't think so. Maybe it has, but unlikely. You're still breathing. You can still be mindful of the breath in, mindful of the breath out. Your breath is still arising and falling, just the same, in lockdown, out of lockdown. The law of karma is just the same in lockdown or out of lockdown. You attach to a negative thought, worry, anger, greed, jealousy, it's suffering. In lockdown, out of lockdown, it's suffering. You bring up a thought of kindness, generosity, mindfulness, you reflect on the Dhamma, you contemplate the Dhamma. Well, you can do that in lockdown or out of lockdown. It doesn't change. Maybe you can do it better in lockdown because there's less distractions. Got more time. You can turn your lockdown into something good, a good experience. If you drop the complaints and the frustration and then see, well, what can I do? I can spend this next 5 days like a retreat, do more meditation, contemplate the Dhamma. So there's many things that don't change in lockdown. Some things do, some things don't. But we can learn from this experience. And that way you can transcend the experience. In the end, lockdown is just a label we put onto the current state of affairs, rules, regulations, do's and don'ts. But when you look beyond the labels, where you can see the Dhamma, the truths of things, and the truths of karma, good and bad karma, are still just the same. If you're kind to someone, that's going to be exactly the same in lockdown or as out of lockdown. The impermanent nature of this world, the changing nature of things, is just the same in lockdown as it is out of lockdown. You can learn and come to see that. So the Buddha was encouraging us to practice whatever the world brings us and to develop the same old path. And practice the generosity, bring up the mindfulness, contemplate the Dhamma, practice kindness and compassion, patience, developing the same qualities to meet with our experiences. And sometimes things go well and sometimes they don't. Sometimes we get what we want, sometimes we don't. But we meet our experience by developing these same qualities. And that gives us a chance to learn from everything. The little mushrooms are there for us to pick up if we're opening our mind and recognizing that. If you're just sitting there hoping and waiting for the big one and you haven't got it, well, of course, you'll feel a failure. And maybe you'll just quit and lose all your enthusiasm for everything. And unfortunately, it does happen. People can't go to work, can't socialize, can't do this, can't do that, so they become very depressed. We have to turn these situations around and use them as opportunities to learn the Dhamma, pick up a few extra mushrooms along the way. This is one reason why we chant regularly, because those chants, they may be repetitive or boring sometimes. You might think, oh, I've chanted that before, I know the words. But these words are all pointing to different truths that help you come back to the true nature of your experience, to reflect or contemplate the Dhamma. This is training you in wisdom. Like if you one day do experience the deep state of samadhi, the bliss, the stillness, in that state you're not actually going to know a lot. You get a good rest, and samadhi has a very important role to play in our path. It brings a purity, a restfulness to the mind, a freedom from disturbances. But actually it's the wisdom that we develop from contemplation is the most important thing for helping us understand and let go of suffering. So when one day you enter that state of samadhi and then you come out, it's that moment when you come out is when you should be contemplating. And all these little moments that have led up to it, they're all training your mind in wisdom. So when you do some chanting and you reflect on impermanence or spreading thoughts of kindness and compassion, or reminding yourself that you are the owner of your karma, these are small insights that are building up right view, right understanding in your mind. And they help you along your way. They're the small mushrooms that you can still use to make a nice dish of food. Any moment that you bring your mind to realize some Dhamma, and that helps your mind to free itself from some attachment, some suffering, that's got to be valuable, a valuable moment, whether you've attained deep samadhi and a special state of mind or not. It could be just simply noticing your aversion when you hear news of a lockdown, but saying, I'm not going to give in to this, and let it go. And you carry on, focus your mind on something better, get on with your life. This is how we say how somebody with merit works, and this is how we develop more merit. We may give up temporarily, but then we start again. We begin again. Into lockdown, it's like falling over. And then you get up again. And you carry on. And much of life is like that. We learn from our mistakes. We learn from the obstacles, the problems, how to look after our mind. And that way we're transcending suffering in small ways at first, but that becomes cumulative experience that leads to deeper wisdom. When we talk about nibana, the goal of the practice, sometimes for some people, they really don't like the thought of nibbana. They're afraid of it, or they don't find it inspiring, because they associate nibbana with a kind of death. They say, oh, nibbana sounds like the end of everything. All the things I love and like will be gone. Doesn't sound very exciting to me, doesn't sound very stimulating to me. Perhaps that's because we are so used to attaching to the causes of suffering, that we're so familiar with our craving and our attachment, our desires, our wanting, that we don't even want to give it up, because that sounds like the death of me, the self. But one way you can understand nibbana a little better is just observing the small moments of nibbana in your day. That negative thought that comes up, well, just let it die Ajahn Chah used to say, if it's not good, let it die. Because it's a temporary, transient mental state. I don't like lockdown. I can't do this, I can't do that. Why do we have lockdown? Okay, the thought comes up, but what do you do with it? You let it die, you let it pass. It's like a small moment of nibana. That's what the Buddha was pointing to. What dies is suffering. It's not the person, the sort of ideal that you're clinging onto. It's the suffering that dies. And your mind is free. You can experience that every day. When the weather is really hot and you have a reaction, you feel, oh, I hate hot weather, for example. Well, the hot weather passes, your thought about the hot weather passes, the sensations, the feelings of heat pass. There may be cool weather comes along, maybe you don't like that. Oh, it's too wet, too cold. Maybe you have to remind yourself to be more like the ox, just patient, steady, mindful. Heat is like this, cold is like that. And then you let go. It's like a little moment of nibana. Things go well, you succeed in something, you achieve something, the work you've done is finished. Well, that's good. It's pleasant, you can enjoy it, but it will pass as well. Even that will pass. Everything that arises must cease. When you notice that, then it's like nibana is becoming a little clearer to your mind. Your mind is moving closer to nibana or inclining towards nibana when you recognize the transient, temporary nature of experience. Lockdowns come, lockdowns go. There was that period last year when coronavirus hadn't arrived. There may well be a period in the future when coronavirus is gone, when the vaccine's here or for whatever reason it's passed away. Noticing change inclines your mind towards nibbana. And you can notice the changing nature of things at any time. You don't have to attain a deep state of samadhi to do this. Of course, if you do attain a deep state of samadhi, all the better. But you can just notice things coming and going. And that is like a moment of nibbana. It's training your mind for nibbana, bringing nibbana closer to you. Nothing is lost. You only gain something. You gain merit. You may gain goodness, peace of mind, clarity through understanding. So I hope you all use this time wisely. We don't know how long the lockdown will last, but we'll have our usual live streams during the period of the lockdown if you want to join in. And we'll give you a chance to collect some mushrooms along the way. If you attain a really big mushroom, you find the big mushroom, we'll be very happy for you. But we're also happy if you just get a few smaller mushrooms. You turn your experience into something good. If you're feeling down, try to establish mindfulness. Just observe. It's just a feeling. It arises, passes away. It's just some thoughts. So collect some mushrooms during lockdown, and you'll have a happier lockdown. So for tonight, I'll leave you with these thoughts.